when I look at Boris Diaw, I think of Beethoven and the age of the Romantics.
Heidemann with the ball in her hands from half court and drills it.
That's what they want, little dipsy-doo, jamboree.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to the Fouxdini of the Hardwood Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Shalafou, and this is what we're hooping on today. Today, I'm joined by Michael Singer, an NBA writer for USA Today, to discuss the three-point revolution, positionless basketball, and the evolution of the big man.
How about that lob boogie to AD? Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness.
We talked a little bit the other day about the way the game's changing, and I think it's pretty interesting. Charles Barkley talked about how jump shooting teams would never win a championship just a few years ago.
I want guys beating the hell out of you down low, getting layups, getting other team in foul trouble. Jumpers, I always said, jumpers are like pretty girls. They're really good looking when they going in, but then when you realize that pretty girl is dumb, you're in for a long date.
And now today, the jump shooting teams seem to be the winningest teams in the league. How do you think the game's evolved since Barkley's era?
I mean, I think he's just kidding himself if he doesn't want to recognize that three-point shooting teams are among the upper echelon of the NBA. I'm sure you've seen the number, but I think the top 6 three-point shooting teams percentage-wise are either the top 6 teams in the league record-wise or in the top 8 or top 10 or something like that. You'll have to check that, but I mean, that's a pretty strong correlation. So, you used to need to be a low post inside player to have a significant presence, and you see guys like Steph, who's pretty skinny. You have Isaiah Thomas, who's worked himself into the MVP race. The game has just stretched, and the wider it gets, the more it can incorporate for athletes, not necessarily back to the basket guys. The more space there is to operate, the more you can operate via penetration and dribbling or via just excellent ball movement. Whereas before, I think a lot of it was just interior. And, you look at the big guys now. Who are the best big guys in the league? Unfortunately, Embiid's done for the season, but you got the future of the league's Porzingis and Giannis. I mean, 6'11", they call them unicorns. 6'11" guys who can move like they're guards and still shoot from the outside. So, I don't think the NBA has ever seen guys like that before, as limber and as tall and as still as good as shooters as they are before. So, I think that's sort of where we're at. The Spurs recognize how essential three-point shooting is, but they sort of pick their spots with Kawhi and Danny Green, and I don't know if Tony Parker's a three-point shooter or not, but they know that that's the wave of the future, but they're just sort of not going at it as gung-ho as the Rockets are, where they I think they shoot like probably 35 to 40 three-pointers a game, and I think they set the NBA record for most three-pointers attempted earlier this season, if not twice. So, it's definitely the game's changing, regardless of what Barkley wants to admit or not.
Yeah, and the Rockets are on pace to absolutely shatter the record for most three-pointers attempted in a season.
Right.
And kind of one of those teams that is buying into this new age of basketball, which brings me to my next question. How has the way that front offices have been building their teams changed in recent years, given this new trend?
I think that front offices are looking for guys who are flexible, who can play a number of positions, who can shoot from outside. You tell me, if you're a two guard, there are two guards in the league who can play as fours. Is Melo a 2, is Melo a 3, or is Melo a 4? Like, you tell me. LeBron, maybe he's just an exception, but he can play 1 through 5. Obviously plays left center, but he can still do it. Jimmy Butler, 2 through 4. More 2 and 3, obviously, but then you got Paul George as well, Kawhi Leonard. You can't peg these guys as a specific position. So I think it just in terms of matchups, in terms of defensive matchups, in terms of taking advantage of defensive liabilities, it just helps to have guys as flexible and switchable as possible. I mean, one of my favorite examples is Jay Crowder on the Celtics. He's just, I don't know what position he plays. Maybe a 3, maybe a 2. He guards all of them, 2, 3, or 4. So I think teams are just looking for flexibility in terms of, they're just looking for athletes. And the Warriors, you look at Iguodala, he can play all over the place. He's like sort of a renaissance man. He can just do whatever the team needs. So I think that front offices are generally just trying to look for flexibility in players. You don't want to pigeonhole a guy who, he's going to be our three-point shooter, and if he can't do anything else and he struggles with three-point shooting, then he's expendable. That's essentially what happened with Doug McDermott. He was supposed to be a hot-shot three-point shooter coming out of college, and he struggled. He struggled on defense. He struggled with a lot of areas of his game. And the Bulls traded him. The Bulls gave up a lot to get him, and then they pulled the plug on it. So you cannot pigeonhole yourself as an NBA player.
I've been hearing this term tall guy tossed around, and it's referring to these taller ball handlers like Kevin Durant or Anthony Davis who don't have that typical big man frame and are more ball handlers. I mean, Davis coming up out of Chicago as a shooting guard. Is the traditional big man dead then?
Yeah, it's not what it used to be. I mean, I cited Porzingis. Durant is a great example. That you just don't have backs-to-the-basket guys necessarily anymore. I mean, you got Drummond. I think you're just looking for. I just think you're looking for athletes at this point, and then to coach them. And then to work them into NBA players. Hassan Whiteside was nearly out of the league. He was out of the league, in fact, and now he's one of the best defensive centers in basketball. So, it's just the talent or the raw potential is there for a lot of these guys. It's just how these NBA coaches want to mold them. Is it dead? I don't think you're. I don't think you're drafting Greg Oden over a Porzingis if that was a possibility. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you're drafting a static big man as compared to a guy who can move at that size at 7'3" like Porzingis can. So dead is sort of a harsh term, but I think the prototypical big man of the future can move.
Butler, traffic, and stolen. Karl Anthony Towns and a foot race, and nobody's going to block that one. Yeah.